Returning to our lead story, the visit to China by North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un. What should we make of the trip, and what does it mean for the U.S.? Michael Pillsbury has been advising the Trump administration on Korea. He's a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute, where he directs the Center for Chinese Strategy. And Michael Green was the senior director for Asia on the National Security Council staff during the George W. Bush administration. He's now senior vice president for Asia at the Center for Strategic and International Studies and a professor at Georgetown University. And gentlemen, we thank you both for being here. Michael Pillsbury, to you first. Do we know how this trip came about?
I would say the short answer is no. A senior intelligence official in South Korea told the press a couple of days ago, this is not Kim, this is his sister. Very embarrassing intelligence failure from South Korea. A number of American China experts have tweeted out there's high officials on the train, but no one else. So unless it's extremely sensitive American intelligence, I would say the answer is no. However, we know a lot more about it now. We've had the Xi phone call to Trump, we've had the long Chinese statement, and we've had some communications with the Chinese. I myself have talked to the Chinese about what happened and how they claim they're trying to help us, and I think that's true. I think they are trying to help President Trump.
But they clearly extended the invitation, and Kim accepted. Michael Green, what does the North Korean leader get out of this trip, based on what we've been told?
Well, for now, it's quite a propaganda coup. Kim Jong-un is going to be able to tell his people in the world that after defying the UN Security Council, the international community with multiple missile and nuclear weapons tests, the leaders of the world want to meet with him as the leader of a nuclear weapon state. So just on the face of it, he's gained quite a coup. What he'll hope to get next is Chinese help weakening the sanctions and pressure on him. Whether or not the Chinese help him will depend in part on how effectively the United States, together with Japan and Korea, keep pressure on and keep China focused on getting something more concrete than what we've seen so far.
Michael Pillsbury, you agree there are a number of things that
Yes.
he gets from this?
I do. In many ways, you got a clue at the end of the Chinese statement who Chairman Kim, or the young General Kim, he likes to be called, brought with him. He brought his propaganda chief. It's called the Workers' Party United Front Department Director. So he's obviously focused on just what Mike Green says, getting some international credibility, making sure there's no errors on this trip. It looks like, from his point of view, it came off very well. However, he does, in the Chinese account of what happened, he does sound very junior. He's filled with praise for President Xi. He responded that President Xi said, you know, we need to have more meetings, we need to have special envoys, we need to be exchanging letters. Don't leave me out of the loop ever again, seemed to be President Xi's meaning. And there's a kind of commitment, according to the Chinese.
Because he had been left out of the loop.
Yes, yes.
With this negotiation decision to meet with President
As you know,
Trump.
The Economist magazine calls President Xi the most powerful man in the world, but he doesn't know what's going on in his own backyard. So he had to settle some embarrassing matters of what is owed. They used the term moral commitment. The reason young General Kim has come to report is out of moral commitment to China. I thought that was particularly telling. But still, overall, this is a big triumph for President Trump. Don't forget, last Thursday, slapped the Chinese in the face almost with the tariffs, the announcement of the lawsuit, you know, the crackdown on technology. And 4 days later, we have the Chinese helping us quite a bit with the young general.
Michael Green, a big triumph for President Trump, and what does it mean for the prospects for the summit, a summit?
Well, if there's a summit, because while it's clear that Kim Jong-un has gotten some propaganda mileage out of this, it's not clear yet what we get. Doesn't mean we won't get anything, but first round goes to Kim Jong-un. The only indication out of the meeting between Xi and Kim Jong-un that there might be some intention to talk about nuclear weapons is the statement that the North Korean leader apparently made that he continues to favor denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, which President Trump highlighted in his tweet. But anyone who's negotiated with North Korea, and I have, knows that when the North Koreans say denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, they mean after the United States stops protecting South Korea and Japan. It's a nothing burger. There's no there. So
that's a very good point.
So we'll have to see. There's no indication I can see at all that there's any concrete move intended by North Korea to do anything of significance. So the next round will be critical.
So, Michael Pillsbury, how do you see the prospects for the summit after this? You said you think it's good for President Trump, but denuclearization, what does it mean?
Well, that's the precise problem. I mean, there's a problem of who goes first. Perhaps Secretary of State Pompeo could go first, or Ambassador Nikki Haley. That's what President Clinton did.
You mean to meet with Kim
with
Jong-un?
the young general. But the issue of denuclearization is what I've been talking about a lot with the new Trump advisors. It's just what Mike Green says. There's two different definitions of it. It sounds like when we hear it, it means he's going to get rid of all his nuclear weapons. That's not his definition. His definition is he will make a judgment, and he said it could be as long as 10 to 20 years from now, whether he feels secure because the Americans have withdrawn completely from South Korea, canceled our treaty. You know, he's going to decide denuclearization. It's not even clear if he could keep some nuclear weapons, you know, in 20 years. So this is going to be the key sticking point for the summit. And frankly, I'm not one of those who believes we have to make a deadline, you know, in mid-May.
Right.
I'm for a postponement if necessary to get clarification on just this one word, denuclearization. What are we really getting together to talk about?
Because, Michael Green, the U.S., that's not in the cards at this point. I mean, maybe years from now, the U.S. thinks about removing troops in some form or fashion, but that's not in the near term at all, is it?
No, and I've heard North Korean diplomats, when I was in the White House, use this term in the UN, in Pyongyang and Beijing. Eventually, we'll denuclearize after you.
After we feel secure.
So Mike makes an important point. If President Trump goes into this with no preparation, and based on his tweet, he said that Kim Jong-un might do the right thing, but he's basing that on this statement about quote-unquote denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, which doesn't mean anything. So a much better approach for President Trump would be to have a series of preparatory meetings to find out what the real there is. It's not clear that he wants to do that or not, but if Mike's advising him and others are telling him, get lower-level talks clarified, that's very good advice.
And meantime, you have these reports of new activity at the reactor sites. A lot of questions still.
The summit would clearly be canceled, I think, if there's a provocation by North Korea, a nuclear test or a long-range missile test toward Guam, something like that. That would clearly be a deal breaker.
We will be watching it all, and I know you will. Michael Green, Michael Pillsbury, thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you.